So the first talk in this room will be from Leander. She's going to help us realize a little bit of our hidden potential, so to speak, because all of us here are learning new languages in our daily business, new programming languages. And she discovered that we can leverage the procedural knowledge we already have from learning early language and programming with early language to learn new languages, which sounds very practical to me, so I'm looking forward to that. She's now actually a technical account manager at Red Hat, which you can see from her hat. She's really descriptive in what she does, because she's also part of the Fedora community, the Hat Django Girls community. Being a girl, it's all great. She's actually for 4 years in the Netherlands already, but she's from the United States, and I'm sure she will give a great talk. She wanted to encourage everyone to tweet about this, because, well, tweeting is nice, of course. So give a good applause for Leander about leveraging procedural knowledge.
Thank you. Twitter, that's my handle. So if you want to give feedback, concerns, questions, snide comments, feel free. And then, of course, at PyGrunn. I am a Red Hat TAM, hence the hat. But I am a Python Django newbie. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come here in particular and talk today, is because here at Red Hat, we encourage everyone's newbie. Everyone has their own specialty. My specialty is satellite, but I am a complete newbie when it comes to cluster. So when I go to a clustering specialist, he doesn't make fun of me much, but he helps me figure out my clustering issues. So I am a Python Django newbie, and this is how to leverage procedural knowledge. So what is procedural knowledge is obviously something I'm going to talk about. Know thyself has to do with, in order to leverage procedural knowledge, you have to know what you know. And that has to do with declarative knowledge, which is the what's, but also what do you know how to do. Drink from the Firehose is a phrase that we use at Red Hat, and I'm going to talk about how I leverage procedural knowledge to drink from the Firehose. It has to do with inhaling something that's overwhelming. What does that mean? Return to Your Roots is a Skyrim shout out if you've played, and that has to do with being a Django Python newbie, and I'll talk about why that Skyrim reference. What I've done since the Django workshop, which was in March, and what my next steps are. So basically, I am showing you my process, and hopefully this will help you with your process. Okay. So procedural knowledge versus declarative knowledge. Declarative is Amsterdam is the capital of the Netherlands. J is the 10th letter of the ISO basic Latin alphabet. And it always rains in Groningen all the time. Procedural knowledge is how to ride the bike, how to prepare for a marathon, and how to learn a new language. It's the how versus the what. You may know the importance of having the perfect stroke in swimming, and you know that you're supposed to be coordinated, but you may completely drown when you get into the pool. So that's procedural versus declarative. Now, how do you take declarative knowledge and turn it into procedural knowledge, which is one of the models, is that a lot of language teachers will tell you practice, 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 practice. Actually, Netherlands Dutch is actually a little bit difficult to learn because everyone speaks English. And so you start speaking in Dutch and they go, oh, that's nice, I'll speak in English with you. And you go, nee, ik wil oefenen, I want to practice. Because that's the only way to transfer declarative to procedural. Now, the other model is that you can take procedural and transfer it into declarative. And that's what I'm going to talk about, because you know how to practice, you know hours and hours of code. and then it starts to sink in, and then you don't have to look up what's that variable, and you got it. Procedural is, I know how to use Git. I know how to use Vim. So I'm going to use Git and Vim while I'm learning this new language, instead of trying to learn an entirely new programming editor. I'm just going to use Vim, because that's what I'm comfortable with, that's what my fingers know. I'm ready. So who am I? Since I'm taking you on my messy journey, you need to know who I am. So I, in 1983, yes, I'm older than I look, learned BASIC on a TI-99 back when Texas Instruments made computers. And it hooked up to your TV. It was a keyboard thing. Anyone experience with? No? Okay, feeling old. I love linguistics, like literally Japanese, Dutch, Spanish. I love those because they're like logic puzzles. And you put together, how can I communicate with other people through linguistics? How can I get to know your culture? I learn your language first. And then I actually am that person who, instead of taking an elective like PE, I took electives like math. I'm that person. I have an undergrad in dance, yes, and a master's in IT. And there has been a request that I dance on the stage, and I might not, I might resist. And it's important to know that, because that's why I am a self-taught HTML, CSS web graphic designer, is because when you dance in the United States, unless you are very, very, very lucky and very talented, you are going to scrape by. I literally filed taxes beneath the poverty line for years because I was waitressing, I was scraping by. And so I taught myself languages so that I could use that as a bartering tool for rehearsal space, for performance space, for costumes. It was kind of easy because of like logic puzzles, linguistics, and I just applied that style of learning languages to HTML, CSS, and I practice. And of course I have a master's in information technology, but why do I have that? Because when you have an undergraduate in dance and you apply to a tech job, they go, no. And they don't even give you an interview. So I went back to school and got a master's in IT. No big deal. Okay, so drinking from the Firehose. In 1993, Red Hat and open source were introduced to me. 1994, I was working in a computer lab at my university. Yes, with the degree in dance. I was that nerd who was in the Linux lab resetting the printers. And a friend of mine in computer science, he said, oh my gosh, open source, have you heard of this? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'll never forget how he described it to me. Easy to remember, I'll describe it to you. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, has a famous commercial style. It's called their secret recipe. KFC is not open source. Because if they took that recipe, though, and they put it online so that anyone could download that recipe, tweak it, suggest new ways to make their chicken, that would be open source. I said, oh, that's brilliant. I'm going to tell everybody. Now I'm going to go dance. And I completely forgot about open source, forgot about Red Hat, and then we moved to North Carolina, and I went, oh my gosh, Red Hat's right there. Okay, I'll go dance. Then in 2009, they changed their hiring policy. You no longer needed Linux experience to get in as a support engineer. I have a master's in IT, it doesn't mean anything, but I have a master's in IT and I'm really good at technical stuff. And I had done some customer service, and you had to have 2 of the 3, Linux, tech know-how, customer service. 2 of the 3. So they hired me. They hired 2 other people just like me. And they hired 3 people who had lots of Linux experience. You have to pass the RHCE. Has anyone taken this test? Red Hat Certified Engineer. It's a little hard. You have to pass it within 90 days. You get 3 chances or you're fired. No big deal. 5 out of 6 of us passed. Took me only 2 times. But I had to take that self-taught HTML, Japanese is the language I picked, CSS, web graphic design. Okay, I know how to learn languages. Now I have to learn command line. I have to learn RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And I took that procedural knowledge and I applied it to pass the RHCE. It was really hard. But I had to learn tricks. So for example, there's the touch command. Any familiarity with touch? It creates the file. But if you take Vim, VIM, and you open a file, it can be completely new. It doesn't have to exist. VIM space, whatever file name you want, does the same thing as touch. So you know what? I'm not going to use my brain space to remember touch, except for now, but this is years later, so touch is easier to remember. Did that for the whole 60 days. Actually, they told us 90 days, it was 60 days. Did I mention the 6th guy was fired? Yeah, no pressure. Drink from the fire hose. Let me tell you a little bit about boot camps. Because I grew up military, that's why I have a neutral American accent. The United States Air Force has a boot camp in Texas. I did live in Texas a little bit. And my mom happened to be the preacher for these kids who were 18, 19, 20 babies. I was 17 when she was their preacher, and she was like, never join the Air Force. Okay. She told me boot camp actually isn't about doing 50 push-ups. Actually, 50 is low. Doing 500 push-ups, running 3 miles. It's about breaking you down so that when I tell you to jump, you jump. You don't ask questions, you just jump. That's what the United States boot camp is, in case you ever joined the United States Air Force. The RHEL boot camp, the Red Hat boot camp for new hires, is similar. Yes, you're supposed to pass the RHCE, and technically you do, unless you fail and then you're fired. But the real purpose of it is to see if you can handle drinking from the fire hose. And when you can, and you pass, and you're successful, you keep drinking from the fire hose. Next call, blah, 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 technology I have never heard of, can you fix it? Oh, let me do a little research about that, and I'll get back to you. What's your name? Okay, I'll be right back. Oh my God, I have no idea what that was about. Drink from the fire hose, figure it out, procedural knowledge, learn it again. And also, and this is maybe a little bit more detailed than you want about what it's like to be a support engineer with Red Hat, there are 4 points to every single call. It's exactly, it doesn't matter why they call, what technology they're talking about. 4 points. What are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it? What do you think should happen? And what's happening? And you can use those 4 questions on every single call. But it is drinking from the fire hose, learn the new knowledge, go fast, 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 fast. So then, 6 years later, hi, been a Red Hat 6 years, I thought, you know what? Oh, and by the way, I'm looking for a new position within Red Hat, so I can't make the dinner tonight. I have an interview. I was like, what do I want to do at Red Hat now? Well, I really loved coding, actually. I loved having a Mountain Dew, zoning out, creating something. That was awesome. And I'm looking through devconf.cz. slides, and I see Django Girls, and I think, oh, that sounds cool. And I Google Django Girls. Oh, and there's a honey. Oh, and it's in 2 weeks. Oh, okay. Randomly apply, think they will be like, no, we're full. Get in, and they email me a preparation. I haven't coded in 6 years, but I've used Vim. I've been doing Linux. I've been learning in a second. I can do this. Get the email the day before the workshop. No pressure. Drink from the Firehose, got it. It has a list of things to do. In that list, it's got register for Git, already done, because I'm a Red Hatter. It's got install Python 3, not possible because I'm a Red Hatter. RHEL only has 2.7. Going into brief detail, we don't necessarily take the latest and greatest and put it into our enterprise level of operating system. Right now it's still 2.7, even on RHEL 7, which is what I have installed. Had to look it up, made sure the functionality was there, got it. Python 2.7. Install Django. Easy. Install Heroku Toolkit, which is not actually there anymore. Set up a virtual environment. And this is where I just want to say RTFM. Is everyone familiar with RTFM? Read the manual. And it's where I should have gone, oh, wait. Let's read all of the instructions instead of saying point 1, okay, do that. Point 2, okay, do that. Point 3, do that. In the United States, around upper elementary school, so 10, 11, 12, 13-ish, you're given a logic test, and that test is like 100 steps. And the step number 1 is read every single question first. What does everyone do? They read the number 2, and it says do that, and they do that. And read number 3, and they do that. And number 4, and you're just like, it's timed. You have 10 minutes or something absurd to do 100 steps. But then you read number 99, and it says, don't do anything previously listed. Step 100, write your name, turn in this test. RTFM. Teaching us early. Does the Netherlands have something like that? Because that's just mean. Should have RTFM'd and read all the steps, because virtual environment did not mean KVM installation, which I did, and set up an entirely separate route. And I was thinking, why would they just say virtual environment? Why wouldn't they put operating system or anything? Like, step 5, read the tutorial. Okay, go to the tutorial. This is how you set up a virtual environment, and then install Django. Oh, hours gone. Should have known that. Should have known that. Not using a mouse. There we go. One of the errors that I got, by the way, that's my Django Girls blog that I set up, which you can go to on your own. You can post it on Twitter. It's on Heroku. I got an error message during the workshop, and my coach actually didn't know what to do with that error message either. And I Googled, and I used my troubleshooting. I used all of my Red Hat procedural knowledge. I used everything I could think of. We talked to another coach. We were like, where does this come from? The error specifically is operational error at admin, no such column, Django content type dot name, which is database-ish sounding. What? There's tons of resources. This is where the internet fails, in that it gives you conflicting answers. And I tried and tried and tried. I left the workshop without it resolved. Went home, finally slept on it. This is one of my tricks, sleep on it. Woke up, went, nope, that didn't work. Sleeping on it did not reveal the answer. I'm just going to rebuild it. Rebuilt it, it's fixed. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because I have no idea what I did to break it or what I did to fix it. I just rebuilt an entire website app from scratch. Oh, not good. Then, after the workshop. So Django Girls does a really good job of the next steps. They have tutorial extensions, they have lots of options, got it. And this is what I did. I went and deployed out to Heroku. I followed some of the extensions, which is build more, add more to your website, secure your website, create content, comment model, PostgreSQL installation, fun stuff. One of my colleagues over in OpenShift engineering said, I challenge you to deploy to OpenShift. And I said, challenge accepted, sir. Mistake. I have a new baby. Sleep is a very precious commodity right now, and I did not sleep for a week. Trying to make it work on OpenShift. If you go to my OpenShift version of the blog, it is much more parsed down. What error message did I get? Well, I'll tell you, it was operational error at admin, no such column, Django content type.name. Exactly the same. Research further. Ripped out database. Nothing worked. Actually, I stopped working on the project a couple of weeks ago because I was like, you know what, I've got to write this speech. I've got to stop, just let it go. And I think I've got the answer. I think I'm actually missing a call in, but I think I figured it out. My next step is to rebuild the site, which I realize is not good because, again, I don't know why it's broken. I don't know what I'll be doing to fix it. I'm also, since then, started doing Learn Python the hard way. Have you read this? It's awesome. Highly recommend it. It breaks it down. It's super simple. If you know Python already, but if you've never touched Python or you're new to Python, highly, 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 highly recommend it. But my one thing is that he makes fun of Linux in that he says, don't use Vim because only people who like a lot of control, yeah, I do like a lot of control, and have big beards will tell you to use Vim. That's rude. But otherwise, it is a great resource, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Not everyone that does Linux has a big beard. So what's next for me? I'm going to finish that OpenShift deployment, damn it. Django Girls actually has a new deployment called Python Anywhere. It's more, you know how when you first get how to say this? When you're first presented with something, you're like, oh, that's cool, now I'm going to take it apart. Heroku presents it to you, but there's no way to take it apart without hacking their site and really breaking things. Python Anywhere and OpenShift actually give you access to the database and gives you a lot more insight to what's going on in the background, which I think is awesome. So I'm going to do the Python Anywhere deployment. I'm going to practice, practice, practice so that declarative becomes procedural. I'm actually collaborating with some friends to do some applications, and I'm contributing to the Django community. Also next is Girls Who Code, which is a new group that basically after the Django Girls workshop, we were like, but we still want to, what's next? And it's people who get together and actually just hack. And guys are welcome. We're just hacking. And if you want to help review code, that would be awesome. And then also, on the 19th of September, is the Django Girls Groningen workshop, which I will be a coach. Not at all worried about that. So hopefully, this has helped you. You're going to figure out who you are, what you're good at. You already know a programming language or 3. How did you learn them? And apply that to your next programming languages. It may be more difficult between, say, object-oriented and non-object-oriented, But there are still things about how you learn those languages that you can apply to future languages. It happens, you have to figure out who you are, though, and that can be difficult. Are you a doer? Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Figure it out. I'd like to take questions, and I hope you tweeted to @PyGrunn and @RainStance. Questions, comments, snide remarks. Yeah.
So I learned my first programming language. I just did it, spent the evenings, nights doing this. Now I want to learn new languages, indeed functional languages, which are hard to learn. But now I also have a baby, so it's very hard for me to follow my old routine of staying up all night learning a new language. So have you any advice if your life changes so much that your old way of doing things is perhaps not optimal anymore? How can you adapt your being?
Yeah, so just so it's on the recording, the question is, this is how I used to learn a language, which was lots and lots of practice. And now I have a baby. Woo, congratulations. Gefeliciteerd. How do I learn a new language? And that's part of what this is. And I hate to use this phrase, but it works. Work smarter, not harder. Cliche. It actually applies. So what I would recommend is, what about that language became norm for you? And what about that language can be applied to the new language? For me, learning Python has been really smooth because PHP used to be my girl. And so, okay, there's a lot of logic similarities. Yeah, you're not going to be able to stay up all night. Although, depending on how old the baby is, if you're awake anyway, just keep going. Any other questions? Yeah.
Great that you're a coach on the 19th September. Could you please mention that we still need 30 more coaches?
We still need 30 more coaches, and we would love to have you. There's actually an awesome Django Girls How to Be a Coach book. So you can read it. It's just about getting people excited to program. It's not about teaching them every Django app and every Python command in the history. So you don't have to be necessarily an expert. And yeah, highly recommend it. For September 19th, you can sign up on django.org/Groningen.
Yes.
Wow. And this is Leander, who's our Django Girls rep. And our Girls Who Code rep is here too. Any other questions? Comments, snide remarks?
So when learning a new language, what would be the first step or the first 3 steps that you would recommend?
Okay, so know yourself. Oh, painful. Take a minute to actually know how you learn. Do you learn from doing, watching, reading? And then do that. Because there are workshops that are interactive online. There are workshops that are strictly reading. There are workshops that are just videos for you to watch someone else do it. And that's all free and online. So the very, very first step is to know yourself, know what works for you. And then after that, I find it very comforting to have a familiar thread from the old language. Like, I always program in VIM. So now I program in VIM as well. And it just, my fingers don't have to think about something new. You just keep going. This could be dancing, right? Okay. Any other questions? Comments, snide remarks? Thank you.